So, Minister, here we are at the London International Stock Exchange at the start of London International Shipping Week. We just had a few presentations, including your own, where you spoke about high finance on the high seas and London's role in that.
Yes, well, London is at the heart of our maritime success from its very beginnings. And of course, this great city set on the river has had maritime and shipping interests throughout. So being here to launch London International Shipping Week couldn't be more appropriate, and launching the stock exchange was a real joy.
And you've set a very important target, which you say you've resourced for the UK industry.
Yes, exactly. We can never be complacent about our success. It's true that it's rooted in all the history I spoke about this morning, and it's also true that we continue to be the premier location for shipbroking and law and finance and insurance. But we need to do even more, aim even higher, and I want to double the size of our ships register. That's the ambition I've set. We put the resources in place to achieve that. And absolutely right that we should look to a future just as glorious, no, more glorious than our past.
So what sort of resources have you put in and what sort of time frame are we talking about?
Well, I think this can be done in the short term, not the long term. I don't think we want to say we're going to do this over decades, but it's going to take a while to build those relationships, to work with the countries that we believe should be recommitting to London. We put Doug Barrow, who's a very well-respected and experienced person in the sector, who, of course, made his name in Maritime London and so on, in charge of this work. He is already travelling the globe, talking to other nations. I'm doing the same, so he knows he has continuing government support, and he, with the government, will put a big effort into growing our ships register. It's making people know that the offer is something special, that flying the British flag is something that they want to do because they know how much difference it makes.
What other ideas have you got in the pipeline to boost the competitiveness of UK Shipping PLC?
Well, of course, we had the Maritime Growth Study, which I initiated when I was last the Minister. But I want to review that study in the light of subsequent events. Brexit's happened since then. The Growth Study couldn't have anticipated that. But the Growth Study did important things. It talked about training. It talked about consolidating the industry, providing a single voice, and Maritime UK is providing that voice. And now I want to review that to make sure it's a living document, that it's relevant as we go forward. Studies that governments commission and publish are often important for a while, but then get neglected. To make sure that doesn't happen with this study, I want it to be regularly reviewed, to be a document which can be used, if you like, as a blueprint for how we move forward. So there will be a new emphasis on trade as a result of Brexit. We can be ambitious for trade as we become an increasingly outward-looking nation. I know that's something with the effect it has on ports and maritime services and the sea generally that I want to see emphasised now in this review. So lots of work going on to look at how we can put into place the necessary policy, the necessary support, working with industry to make our maritime future just as glorious as our maritime past.
So when can we expect version 2.0?
I've seen the draft and I want to get that published before the end of the year. So my plan is to refine that draft, have a close look at it, to enter discussions with key players. That's already happening. Indeed, it's already happened in terms of going back to some of the people that worked on the original growth study and asking them to refresh what they think in the light of those changing circumstances. I want to take a look at that myself, of course, and look to publish that review and then to commit to further reviews on a regular basis so that we can indeed make it a living document.
And finally, it would be remiss of me not to ask you about Brexit and its expected impact on the shipping markets and how you perceive the challenges and the opportunity.
Great empires are built in different ways, and great civilizations framed in different ways. If you think of the history of Britain and the difference we made in the world, it was made on the back of the sea, of our maritime strength, of our trading strengths. Now, as we've moved beyond our empire to the modern age, it doesn't mean the sea doesn't remain just as important. We are, after all, an island people. And I think what Brexit does gives us a chance to be still more ambitious. Cathartic change stimulates fresh thinking, stimulates imagination, stimulates new ideas. When it's kind of business as usual, people often aren't at their most creative. So this important change for our country, I believe, can be a new beginning for how we see our place in the world, how we see trade, and at the heart of trade, of course, is the sea and our maritime strength.
Did you vote for Brexit?
I not only voted for it, I campaigned for it. I've wanted us to leave the European Union since I was a child. I couldn't have voted the first referendum when I was too young, but all my political life thereafter, I believe that we could be better, bigger, more ambitious outside of the European Union.